Let's see. And подробнее трансляция на Facebook. On your timeline, on the page. Okay. Waiting. Not staying another 35-40 minutes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what if I close it, launch it again, open the meeting, okay, трансляция на Facebook. Let's try it again. We did that on the page. Next. Yay! Hopefully it will work. Mm. Well, Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nadya Touch, and I am feeling so guilty for not being able to start my regular webinar. And now I'm on the cell phone with a weird looking angle because it just did not work to go live in the way I want to. And it's been 8 minutes and I'm late and I'm feeling guilty. Is that familiar to you? Every day you find something to be guilty about. So here is mine right now. And this is our conversation today. Why am I feeling guilty? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nadya Touch. I'm certified health, life, and fitness coach. I help men and women in the 50s to lose stubborn 20 pounds so they can finally fit in clothes they want to fit and keep it this way through a transformation of lifestyle and habit change. And I'm also passionate advocate of Shaklee products for your everyday use. And if you like topic like this, well, who likes topic like this? But we want to be present and really understand what to do about that and why actually this is happening in our life. So if you're curious and you want to constantly grow yourself as a person, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Videos like this are uploaded almost every week. The Natural Power 100, THE Natural Power 100. And you can also receive my newsletters through nadyatouch.com/newsletter. There's a newsletter that is devoted to weekly topics like this, and there's one that is a wellness center that is more towards the health of your body and also Shaklee topics and Shaklee products. Thank you for your like. And also, please join our Friends and Health Facebook group. This is for you and anyone you know who needs daily motivation and inspiration in the wellness journey. So it is Friends and Health Facebook group. And also, next Tuesday, I will be on the national call talking about sugar, why we love sugar and can't stop eating it. I promise you, you will hear something that you may not thought of, so it will be a great discovery of your sugar addiction and any kind of addiction that you feel I just can't stop loving this carbohydrates or pizza or processed food. What do I do about that? So that will be next Tuesday at 7:30, 7:45 Central Time, and I will post a link underneath. All right, why am I feeling guilty? I want to say all the time. To tell you honestly, this has been the most difficult topic for me. I actually cried about an hour ago because I just did not want to finish the script. And I would find every possible thing why I'm feeling so guilty. One of them is I was late 8 minutes. My normal way of broadcasting didn't work. The color doesn't work. Now my face looks weird. The camera is sticking out from the phone. And I work so early, therefore I have to go to bed so early, and my kids are still watching TV at that time, and I feel guilty for not spending time with them in the evening because I have to go to bed. And sometimes I have to leave the dishes in the kitchen sink because I have to go to bed. And then I'm waking up and then I feel guilty that I have to go to work and not seeing them in the morning. Then I have to feel guilty because I have to go for the run, take care of myself and kids at home. I feel guilty because I can't make breakfast for them. I feel guilty for, I feel like I haven't spent enough time preparing the script. Shall I find more guilties? Give me yours, please. So if you're watching it live, by the way, please comment live. And if you're watching it in replay, please comment. I think it's #replay. I'm very curious when you're watching it. If you have something that you can add to feeling guilty, please do that. Actually, just a few seconds ago before I went live, I found another guilty. One of my clients, she was on elliptical for 30 minutes this afternoon. I saw you. And I gave you my acknowledgement within me. And here I am receiving a message from you that you feel guilty for not staying longer and doing more. Isn't it? There's always something we feel guilty about for not doing more, not being good enough, and etc. We want to be better parents, and we constantly feel that we are not good enough parents and feel guilty about that, isn't it? Which one is yours? This list is endless. I think we can find from the very early morning till the very end of the day what we feel guilty about, isn't it? Oh, that's a load of it. All right. Well, let's break it down and actually ask ourselves why we feel guilty, why this thing is so present all the time to us. And what I also would like to do to dig down what to do about that. Okay, knowing why may not make a difference if we don't do anything about that, isn't it? So let's split two categories of guilt. What's interesting, when I was preparing for this conversation, most of the time, if you go online and you kind of feel guilty and you want to know what to do about that, what you find online is the guilt if you did something, if I may say, wrong. You constructively feel guilty about that, so they give you solutions what to do about that. So there are two guilts, if you may say, constructive guilt and destructive guilt. That's my way of putting it. So constructive guilt, let's say if you really did something wrong, you swear if someone yelled, in my life, yelled at the kids, and I do feel guilty about that. So what to do? Well, let's talk about, really not talk, but just real quick, forgive yourself, forgive yourself. Take responsibility for what happened and allow this person to speak, and allow yourself listen in the space of love. Put yourself in the shoes of that person. Really authentically put yourself in the shoes of that person. That's another conversation, what to do about the constructive guilt. And it's really the rational guilt, and it's the productive guilt. It's guilt that is really, if I may say, good for us. Okay, it's necessary guilt. And let's talk about the other one. I think that's the one that is so daunting to us, so all the time on top of our shoulders like a brick, and we just want to get rid of it. And what you will see is what's interesting, that if you go check online, they say just don't feel guilty or try to get rid of this. Really? How am I going to get rid of something that is just a part of me? It's engraved in me. It's just that it's there. Well, this is the self-guilt. That the second category I will put it into is destructive guilt. That's the guilt that is based on self-critique. I'm reading my notes not to get off the track. It's based on self-negative talk. It's really unnecessary guilt, but I invite you not to fight with it. I invite you to be curious what it is. We're going to get into it. And it's really this type of guilt, and I gave you so many of examples that I have in my life. I'm curious to know your examples. Even though they're there all the time, but if you let them be and don't do anything about that, the long-term unnecessary guilt like that really creates, well, stress. And the long-term stress really may lead to anxiety, may lead to depression, and unfortunately may lead to suicidal thoughts and suicide. This is really the worst case scenario, but it is what it is. And do you actually know that 1/3 of Americans dissatisfied with their lives? 1/3, that is 100 million Americans are not happy or dissatisfied with their lives. That's actually where we are tapping into this destructive sense of guilt that is around dissatisfaction of our life. And that is, again, I mentioned, comes from negative self-talk, from self-critique, and therefore, where you may find yourself, if you're attentive enough, you apologize more than, if I may say, you should. Have you noticed how many times a day you apologize where it kind of feels inside yucky? When you apologize, it feels like, why am I apologizing? But you still do that. Is it familiar? And the same around like not good enough. All that self chatter, self negative talk is not good enough. Let me just apologize. Isn't it exhausting to be feeling like this all the time? It's unsatisfying, it's frustrating, and it's exhausting. Spend so much energy on that. Whew. And I'm leading towards the feel of guilt and feeling guilty. It is really this type of guilt, the destructive guilt, is negative emotion. It's negative feeling. And it doesn't really serve neither you or others. And it's somewhat based on judging yourself. It's based on judgment that you're not good enough. And what it's also doing, it's almost like sometimes it's easier for us to feeling guilty rather than having an action. Feel guilty is easier than an action because it doesn't require anything. You just feel guilty inside. You don't have to physically do anything. And what happens over the time, that it piles up in your life so much that it actually so destructive to your life that it becomes worse, piles up over the time than actually having an action. There's my alarm. And guess who it belongs to? So we're moving to what to do about that. Yes, it's there. Who does it belong to? It belongs to me. It belongs to you. It belongs to the owner, to whoever created that feeling of guilt. It's created by you, so it belongs to you. And you know what it becomes? It becomes focusing on yourself and being, if I may say, selfish, rather than being selfless and focusing on others. What do you feel about that? So the feeling of self-guilt is pointed inwards, pointing at you, focusing on self rather than others. Let's talk about what to do about that. And these 4 points are really the steps that I'm creating for myself. And I'm very curious to hear your reflection on these steps, and maybe you want to add something to that. Maybe you've done already something similar, or maybe it's something new to you. So please put in the comments anything that you got to say, any reflection from what I'm saying. Okay, step number 1. When you're feeling the guilt, I invite you not to fight with it. Be with it and acknowledge it's there. Acknowledgement. Accept it's there. Own that it's there. And I would say, that's my way. I say, here is what my body is feeling. I often say it in the 3rd phase because that's my conscious way of separating me from what's there. If I say I'm feeling guilty, I'm giving that ownership to me, but I'm actually acknowledging is what my body is experiencing. Do you feel the difference? Rather than me and the guilt, or my body feeling guilty. My mind knows my body is feeling guilty. Okay, I'm acknowledging that. Here's what my body is feeling. So acknowledge and accept, and here's what you got to say. Here's what I'm saying to myself. I did the best I could. Or I'm doing the best I can. Because there's always something we can say, you could do more, you could do better, but I'm doing the best I can. And if you really did just kind of step aside talking about the constructive guilt, if there's an action that happened and you constructively feel guilty, forgive yourself. Have a compassion and really understand about both feelings of guilt. Compassion, understand, and forgiveness. I'm going to give an example of me, which happens almost every evening when I have to go to bed between 8 and 9. It's too early for my kids because I wake up at 4, they wake up after 6, 2 hours later. Of course, they go to bed later after me. So when I go to bed, or I have to, I feel quite guilty because they're watching TV and I feel I could have spent some time with them, whether it's watching TV or maybe encouraging them to play games as a family, being a good mom. And instead I say goodnight, I give them a hug, kiss, and I go to bed. And I talk to them about washing the dishes. I try different variations of it, so it actually happens. I feel guilty leaving the dirty dishes. I feel guilty asking them to do it almost every evening. Then I wake up, and if it not happen or the lights are not turned off, TV is working, I feel guilty for not being an effective mom, not being a good mom, and all that. I'm pretty sure you can relate in your own life to that. And I'm just acknowledging that. That's what it is. Here's the situation. I'm accepting that's how my body is feeling. It's feeling quite guilty. Step number 2 is be curious. Ask yourself why. Do you notice that there's no judgment in being curious? So we take away that negative judgment and we're just being curious. And I'm being curious in the way of asking myself why. So here's the thing. Number 1 is, here's the situation. I'm going to bed. My kids are watching TV. Number 2 is my body is feeling frustrated. And number 3 is why I'm feeling frustrated. I will pause you here. Yesterday, I posted on Facebook, the expression is your beliefs are your memories. Everything we do is based on what we know. Everything we know is based on our memories. Guess what happens in my belief of being a good mom? Where it's coming from? It's coming from my memory. Where is it coming from? My own family and my parents, how they brought me up. So the way I brought up is the way I have the standards, how it needs to be a good mom and a good family. So here is a term that I just read in the Psychology Today online resource. Are you ready? Feeling of guilt arises from betraying your own rules of ethical behavior. Write it down. Feeling of guilt arises from betraying your own rules of ethical behavior. Just think about it. And the rules that I have for this ethical behavior are the The beliefs that I have that are based on the memories that are created by my family standards. Being a good mom equals lights off, TV off, kids in bed, dishes are clean, house is clean, I can go to bed now. I'm gonna cry right now. That's exactly what it is. And when I wake up in the morning, lights are off, TV is off, kitchen's clean, bed is made up, floors are clean, the house feels fresh. That's being a good mom, yes. That's why this was so difficult to create. And then I get all this sense of guilt. I should do this, I have to do that, because it's just not what it is in my everyday life. Oh, here's what I do. Number 3. So number 1, we talked about acknowledge and accepting. Number 3, being curious and ask yourself why. Number 4, number 3 is, what is that why? What is important? What am I grateful for? What am I looking for? I'm looking for feeling love. I'm looking for feeling like I belong to this family, like I'm doing a good job as a mom. I'm looking for peace. I'm looking for knowing that my kids love me anyway. I'm looking for feeling that I did the best that I could. The best way for me, number 3, being grateful. I'm grateful my kids are healthy. I'm grateful my older child has not had allergies for several months. I'm grateful they're smiling. I'm grateful they are giving me kisses and hugs and they tell me I love you. I'm grateful for warm bed, for my beautiful light, for the salt lamp. I'm so much grateful for. It is overwhelmingly grateful. Do you feel how you change your energy? You switch in your energy from that negative feeling of guilt to a positive vibration of being grateful. And number 4, step 4 is, with that said, when I gave myself a gratitude, I said yes to love, to feeling grateful, to the health, to the unity of the family. I said yes to that. Number 4 is, in that space of gratitude, evaluate, adjust, and communicate. I know it's very loaded. Not even sure which one is the most important here. Let's have them all together. Communication, to me, occurs as the key here. And communication, do you remember I mentioned in the constructive guilt? Let them speak and listen in the space of love. The same thing here. Communicate the truth, what's there for you, in the space of love and collaboration. Not in the space, that's how it needs to be. This is how I am as a mom and the family needs to be. I create partnership with my family. 4 of us in the house. The house is the way it is, and it's responsibility for all of us to have it all together as a family. And I asked myself a question in terms of evaluation. What's the most important here? The most important here is, I'm going back to an example, I'm going to bed early and the kids go still watch TV. The important why I'm going to bed, I'm choosing going to bed, is it is my self-care. And I'm actually turning my intention towards why self-care for me is so important, because I want to be my best for my kids tomorrow because I'm rested, for my clients tomorrow because I'm rested. I can be my best. I can give them the energy that I know I have and could happen, can happen, will have when I sleep restfully and full night. My self-care become a priority because I got big intentions and big mission to fulfill. And the peace of my family is also important. Have you heard of the expression that you choose the least between two evils? Something like this. So for me, if I made them turn TV off and then it's the turmoil of negative emotion, or I just have a communication with them and we agree that I go to bed, the TV is off at a certain time, over the time, it may work, it may not. But the peace of my family and the peace within me is more important than having my own point of view. With that said, in some ways, you do want to be firm, you do want to be authoritative, you want to stand your rights. So I do communicate with my children how sleep is important. And we do have a conversation what technology creates in your body as a natural response, the bright lights, TV, what happens with your brain. So it's just education for them is important. It's important for anyone, isn't it? Sometimes we don't even know what we don't know. And, just recently I heard, especially us as parents, this feeling guilt is such a big deal because we want to be better parents. There's always something we feel guilty about. Do you know what it means to be a good parent? To be a good parent means to be a good person. That's that simple. All right. So, why am I feeling guilty? We know guilt is there. There are two categories of guilt: constructive guilt, destructive guilt. We really dived deep into destructive guilt. The guilt that is not serving you, it's not serving anyone else. And it's really based on the self-negative talk, which comes from our standards, that are our beliefs and our memories, and really comes from your childhood. What to do? Acknowledge, accept, forgive if you need to. Be curious. Ask yourself why. Be grateful. Say yes to what's the most important here. Communicate in the space of love. Evaluate and adjust. Last but not the least, to be a good parent means to be a good person. Thank you everyone for watching. Before you go, please leave me a comment. What was your main appreciation or aha from this moment? I know we talked a lot, but which moment is the most important for you? Acknowledge, be curious, ask yourself why, communicate. Which one is it? If you love topics like this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Natural Power 100, and my newsletter, nadyatouch.com/newsletter. Join our Facebook group, Friends in Health Facebook group, and also please join my national talk where I will be speaking on why we love sugar and can't stop loving it. Here's another one: eating sugar, feeling guilty. Well, there's more into it. There's actually more and more into it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the community. Before you go, please leave me a comment. Look forward to your reflection.